at the beginning of your journey. So make sure that you take a piece of paper and a pen and write down what is important to me. And this is what I did. So what is important to me? Family life, whether that's a priority for you, whether being filthy rich is a priority for you, whether helping the needy is a priority for you, whether maybe you want to drive an Aston Martin someday, maybe that's a priority for you. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it sounds in your head. Make sure you write down your priorities before you start this journey. That way you'll know, can this country, can this system sustain my life goals? Because there's no point in going to the UK, becoming, let's say, a consultant physician, and then being unhappy with life. So the reason most people move to the UK quite late is because they're unhappy with their existing life. So make sure that you don't make that mistake. So yeah, that's some advice I can give to you. Also understand that you can't have everything in your priority list, so that's why it should be as a priority. What is your priority? List it down, start from there. So when I started, I researched a lot about the exam. I researched a lot about the living standards, the comparisons, the payment scales, and what opportunities I have for career growth. It's a big decision to make, and make sure you make it with use a lot of your brain cells when you think about this. Make sure you consult with your parents and people who may live in those regions as well. If you want to talk to me about it, I've given you my Instagram handle to get in touch. Okay, so the next thing is about, people say this line, I get this a lot, especially when I was studying in Nepal. We had a lot of Indian lecturers, and they used to say, no matter what the exam, medicine is medicine. All right, so that's not the case here. Understand that each exam is very different. For example, if you are going to do the USMLE versus the PLAB, they're very different exams, in that the USMLE is a very, very theoretical exam. You need to know a lot of basics. You need to be good at your basics. Whereas PLAB is a very clinical exam, where it's all about, as a junior doctor, can you manage a clinical situation? So they're two very different exams. And so make sure you know what type of exam you're giving before you start. All right. Yeah, okay. So this is, hopefully I can help you understand what it is PLAB is about. All right. So why did I choose PLAB? Why PLAB and why the UK is a good question to ask me. So one reason is I lived there as a child. I lived there for 3 years when I was quite small. And I've always been drawn to going to the UK, and I always want to do a stint in the UK. So now I've decided, okay, so maybe it'll be a little longer stint, and by that time, I'll move there. So I knew a little bit about the country, so that's a good place to start. So know a little bit about it, learn a little bit about it. The GMC registration is a very valuable thing. So now, if for those of you who are looking to move to Australia at some point, what people recommend now is actually to do PLAB, come to the UK, work for 2 years, and then move over to Australia, because it actually enhances your opportunities in Australia. Because that GMC registration is worth a lot. It's quite a heavy registration to have to your name. On top of that, very recently, and by very recently, I mean about 3 to 4 years ago, the bias on specialization has been changed, in that you don't need to be a permanent resident to start specializing. So as soon as you move to the UK as a doctor, even if you choose to apply the day after you get your registration, you can actually apply for a specialization. So it's not just about going there and becoming a junior doctor and living out the rest of your days. No, you can specialize. The opportunity is there. You just have to compete with the locals and compete with the other foreigners who came in. So it's not easy, but it's not impossible, and a lot of people do it. In fact, that is my plan as well. The next thing, a little quotation I have is, if you're doing medicine, you should either be at the cutting edge of medicine, or you should be helping the people who need it the most. So working with the NHS, it's all about research, it's all about development, it's all about goals, it's all about sustainability. And so it's very much the cutting edge of medicine. So that's something nice as well. And then there's obviously the lifestyle and conveniences of living in the UK. Then there, like I said earlier, I lived there as a child, so that draws me there. And then there is the fact that there's a lot of football, there's a lot of Formula One, and I love those two sports. So that's another reason I'm going there as well. So I'm sure there's a lot of football fans out there. Some of you guys probably watched the El Clasico. Some of you guys lost. Some guys like me won. So that was nice. All right. Right, let's move on. So I get an ask, before I move on to GMC registration, I get asked a lot about the salary scale and whether it is enough. The answer, short answer to that is it is enough. If you are planning to live a very lavish life and maybe have, like a keeping up with the Kardashian sort of lifestyle, that's not going to be sustainable, obviously. But so, for example, a US doc earns a lot more, but it's a good salary. It's a comfortable living. You won't have any shortages. If you're one of two earning partners, you're definitely going to have a quite a good life. So do learn a little bit about the salary scale before you get into it, because if you're somebody whose motive is to be rich, that UK might not be the place for you. But saying that, it's not like you're poor or you're struggling. No, you're actually doing well for yourself. You're in one of the highest tax brackets. However, um, it's not as much as other doctors earn in other places in the world. All right, because it is a welfare state in that medicine is free for you. And this example comes up a lot because people ask me, I mean, medicine is free in a lot of countries, but this is not medicine in in the sense that they give you pills. It is, if you have a stroke, God forbid, and your bedroom is on the first floor and your kitchen is on the ground floor, the NHS will fit in a stair lift for you to move between the floors. That is the level of healthcare I'm talking about. So it's a good place to go. Welfare state, schooling is free, healthcare is free. So when you take all those into account, it's a good living. All right, so GMC registration. Let's talk about these three terms: GMC, NHS, trusts. All right. So what is the GMC? So the GMC is the General Medical Council. So basically, that is the registration we're looking to get. The NHS is the National Health Services. Now you must have seen all the NHS Instagram posts with, the heart and the NHS in it. I mean, that is their health services. The Britishers and the people living in the UK love their health services because it's free for them and it's high quality care. So the difference between those high quality cares and quality care in this part of the world is that they refuse to exhaust their doctors. So as doctors, you have to take mandatory hours off. You can't work more than a certain amount of hours in a shift. So that's quite nice, because if you are an intern or you've been an intern recently or ever in your life, you'll understand that it's absolute murder, and that's not how it works in this part of the world and that part of the world. So I explained the benefits of having a GMC registration. So if you choose to migrate to Australia, it's a good option. If you choose to migrate to the UAE, it's a really good option because they actually pay you more money if you have worked with the GMC for a while. So that's a really good opportunity if you're somebody who's looking to move to the Middle East. Okay, so when you become GMC registered and you join the NHS, where you work is called trust. So trusts are basically hospitals run by companies. All right. So how they make money, I'm not really sure. I'm not really dived into the economics of it. However, trusts are basically the words for hospitals. So when you say I work for this trust, it means you work for this hospital. So don't confuse it too much. That's what it is. All right. What other routes are there to gain a GMC registration? So you can do your membership exams. So your membership exams would be your MRCP, your MRCS, your MRCGP, all those exams. Some countries send their trainees over to the UK for foreign training. So that's the thing that happens in Sri Lanka. I'm not quite sure whether it happens in India. I don't think so. But that's another way in. You can actually pay them and study in their universities and become a trainee there as well. But then after you're done, you have to come back to your home country. So I'm assuming most of you are not targeting that pathway. So I didn't do too much research into it because that's not my priority either. And on top of that, very recently, if you have qualified AMC and USMLE, or AMC or USMLE, and not attempted PLAB and failed, you can actually come into the UK with that qualification because they have a shortage of doctors at the moment. Although that is a very temporary arrangement and it may not be active when you guys start. All right, so be warned of that before you start. So how do I get started with PLAB? Damn good question. And I get asked it a lot because it's all jolly good to plan and dream about moving someplace, but then starting a journey is always difficult. So first of all, like I said before, make sure you have a clear decision, make sure you don't go back on your decision, make sure you've got the finances down, make sure you've talked to your parents and your relatives and make sure it's all good. Then next step would be make sure you've passed your final MBBS. All right, so I understand the USMLE, you start quite young, but that's not the case with PLAB. Finish your final MBBS, then you can start. All right. So if you want to add supplementaries onto your PLAB education, maybe you want to get involved with some research or you want to do some training courses or stuff like that, you can do that. But while you're in MBBS, study for MBBS. Once you're done with MBBS, start studying for PLAB. All right. So don't try to model everything up, because it's quite different as far as the concept of the exam is concerned. The final MBBS, which is, I'm sure in India is very similar to the one I did in Nepal, is very, very theoretical. There's a bit of practicals involved, sure, but this is very clinical, and there's a big difference between clinical exams and practical exams. So clinical exams is all about the treatment and counseling the patient and telling them what's wrong and all that jazz, whereas practical exams is about, tell me what's wrong with this patient. All right. So don't muddle the two up. Finish your final MBBS, and after that, the very first thing you should do after you get your final MBBS result is, hang on, would be to create. Sorry, I've missed the slide. Anyway, the first thing to do would be to create your GMC account. I'll talk about that in a bit when I get to that slide. Yeah. So this is the PLAB pathway. This is what we're going to follow. Take a picture of this. Take a screenshot, do something. This is my recommendation for PLAB pathway. And why I say my recommendation is because of this one arrow right in the middle that is titled ECFMG EPIC verification. So the rest of it is just the generic PLAB pathway. ECFMG EPIC is where I would like you to do your ECFMG EPIC and where I recommend you do it. So, okay, first step is make a GMC account. So first step after passing final MBBS, make a GMC account. Next is get your IELTS or your OET done. Okay, I'm going to elaborate on each of these steps, right? Next would be do your PLAB 1. Then obviously pass your PLAB 1. Then you'll have your ECFMG EPIC verification. Then PLAB 2, pass PLAB 2, do your GMC registration, then secure a job and move to the UK. Everything marked in red is an exam. Everything marked in purple, which is one thing, is an interview. All right. So it's not about being a doctor. It's not about being, when moving to the UK, so this applies to our physiotherapist friends as well. It's not about being a medical personnel. It's about having a personality. It's about being able to communicate with people. It's about being able to mesh with people and blend. So it's quite important to be able to communicate and to settle yourself into these systems. So interviews, right? So let's talk first about making a GMC account. So this is the GMC website. You go to the GMC website, you click on GMC Online, you create yourself an account. So for that, what you need is a graduation date, and that's why you have to wait until you're done with final MBBS. And once you create the GMC account, you get access to where you have to input your IELTS results, where you book your PLAB 1 date, where you book your PLAB 2 date, and all that fun stuff, right? Then you move on to the next step, which is IELTS or OET. All right. So I'm sure all of you have heard absolute horror stories about this. And so let me talk about this now. So these are 2 posts I made on Instagram regarding my experience about IELTS and how I got through the exam in a single go, stuff like that. So if you're interested in IELTS, I would recommend giving this a read, because because this whole journey can get quite expensive. And so I made sure that I did this without spending a lot of any money other than just booking the exam. So yeah, if you are interested, give this a read, and I'm sure it will answer a lot of your questions as to how to prepare for IELTS. All right. Now, OET I can't talk about a lot because I didn't give the OET, but let me say this about OET. The pros of OET is that from the people who have given the exam, it seems to be a much easier exam. The con of it is that it is almost 3 times the price, so which is quite expensive. All right. So then there's the thing about the validity of both these exams. It's 2 years. The validity of IELTS and OET, even though it's the pandemic, it's still 2 years. All right. So when you start these, a lot of people hesitate to start preparing for IELTS and OET because they assume, okay, what if I don't get a PLAB date? What if I have to do it again? So what I have to tell you guys is, if you're planning to do it in the middle of the pandemic, you have to take that risk, because if you don't have an IELTS date or an IELTS result, you cannot book your PLAB 1 seat, and there's just no moving forward. So you're basically just stagnating and you're not moving forward. Okay. So don't let IELTS or OET become a hindrance. Do it, finish it off. It's an English test. You guys are doctors and medical staff. English is not something you're supposed to struggle with. In that, don't let it be a hindrance. Finish it off. All right. You may not pass in the first go. That's quite all right. Most people who sit IELTS do not, and that's okay. do it a second time in that case, and pass. All right. So the reason I ask you to be uh, quite fast with doing this exam, doing the IELTS and having your result, is the PLAB seats book out very fast. So as soon as the GMC announces this, they're going to put out PLAB seats on a certain day, maybe 30 minutes, and all of the seats are gone. So make sure that you have your result reserved in the bank. So I'm going to shut up about the IELTS result now. Okay, so people ask me, why an English test? Yeah, well, what's the relevance of an English test? So first of all, you're going to an English speaking country. And second of all, communication skills is paramount when it comes to PLAB 2. So when you come to PLAB 2, you will understand what it means, what I mean by communication skills. I can give you an example, but it will take a lot of time. However, just understand that IELTS is very important. IELTS OET is very important because your communication needs to be good, and they need to have measured that in advance. Also, for doctors, the IELTS requirement is different to that of other medical specialties, and definitely non-medical specialties. The bar you need to clear is a lot higher. So don't ask for IELTS advice from people who did IELTS targeting lower band scores. All right, so I'll talk about the minimum band scores in a bit, yeah? Right. So IELTS, make sure it is the academic IELTS, not the general IELTS. There are so many people who've gone and done the wrong exam. So please, please, please don't be one of those people. Academic IELTS. There's another thing called academic IELTS UKVI. That is for the UK visa and immigration. So UKVI, you can do it. You don't, I mean, if you do it, it's no harm. If you don't do it, it's no harm. You can just do the normal academic IELTS because I think it's another 2,000 rupees or something more. So I wouldn't worry about doing UKVI because your GMC registration is your immigration policy. So you don't really need to do a specific visa oriented IELTS at all. The minimum score is 7 for each band. So that would be reading, writing, listening, and speaking. A minimum 7 band score with an overall of 7.5. Let me tell you, it's not an easy score to get, so make sure you've prepared adequately. But if you're applying, now there are some of you who are probably planning to move to the UK without doing an internship in India or elsewhere, without a valid GMC recognized internship. For those of you, you will have to apply as an FY1 or a foundation year 1 doctor. For those of you, your minimum score per band, per category should be 7.5 with an average of 7.5. So 0.5 higher is the minimum for each category. Have I made myself clear? Please make sure that if you are applying for FY1 level jobs, I'll explain what all these things mean later on. But if you're applying for an internship in the UK, do make sure that you have this minimum score. Although you can still apply with 7.0 for each subject and a 7.5 overall for the PLAB exams, when it comes to applying for the FY1 level job or the internship, you will have a problem. Okay, so if you are interested about the cost, the IELTS exam as of when I did it, which was last year, was £123. So you can write it down and convert that to INR later on. I'll give you all the values in pounds just to keep things standard. Right, so then there's the OET. So like I said, 3 times the price almost. But according to the people who gave it, it's a lot easier to give. So don't let language be an obstacle when you're booking this exam. Obviously, if you speak fluent English, that's a mega asset as far as this journey is concerned. But if you're not confident in English and you don't speak fluent English, that's all right, provided you pass this exam, because they're very aware that they're bringing in people from outside the UK and they might not speak fluent English, and that's fine. All right, so as you go there, make sure you're open to the idea of learning some English, make sure you communicate and try to learn English. But if you don't speak fluent English, if you don't sound like Prince Charles, that's perfectly all right. Sorry. Okay, right, so that's that. PLAB 1. These are the venues for PLAB 1. India has 6 venues in Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and Delhi. All right. So let me tell you, that's not enough venues for all you Indians. trust me, there are a lot of you who do this exam. So when the dates are released, book your damn venue. Do not wait. Do not decide at that point. Know where you're going. Make a priority list of where would you prefer to go and book that venue. If it's not available, go down the priority and make sure you book a date then and there. Do not wait. Do not blink. I'm telling you now, consider yourself warned. All right. Moving on. So PLAB 1 is 235 pounds. Okay. So the PLAB 1 bookings have really been affected due to the pandemic, but the pandemic is not going to go on forever, hopefully. It will end, and then PLAB 1 seats will become more abundant and more available. Right now, they're operating at a lower capacity, and they don't have as many seats as before, and they don't have, not some centers don't even open up at all. So, like I said, make a priority list and make sure you know which seats you're going for. All right. So there's a lot of desperate people trying to book in. Like there are people who book exams in different countries, not even sure if they're going to go there or not. So make sure that you don't fall into that category. Make sure you book the correct seat in one go. Follow the GMC on Twitter, follow the GMC on Facebook, go to the GMC website and keep checking, and they will give you an update as to when the dates are going to come. Okay. Sometimes the GMC is a bit naughty and they just release seats out of the blue. That happens as well. So for that, I would recommend you join the Telegram groups, the WhatsApp groups, the Facebook groups, and make yourself very, very active. In the sense, you may not need to post about a certain issue, but at least be there and read through the posts, because it actually is invaluable. Some of the posts are regrettably not ideal and some very hateful. But if you look at the general trend, you'll be able to understand what living in the UK is like. So don't be disheartened by a single post. I mean, this is basically just internet 101. Yeah, don't be freaked out by the internet. Take it as a whole. Don't just read one post. All right. Right. So when things calm down, I expect things to go back to normal, and then PLAB 1 seat should be more abundant. But if you are planning to book in the middle of the pandemic or very soon, make sure that you are very vigilant. Follow all the channels, talk to a lot of people, and make sure you know when to book your date. Okay. So now I'm done scaring you guys. Suppose PLAB 1 is, you've gotten your PLAB 1 date now. PLAB 1, you've gotten your date. Let's talk about the preparation. Okay, so I was asked specifically to answer this question. Should I prepare in India or should I travel to the UK? Okay, so provided you have internet and a laptop, prepare in India. If you don't have an internet and a laptop, then probably don't move to the UK anyways. So in short, just stay the hell in India and prepare there. Okay, sit down, get comfortable, you have food, you have home, sit down and study there. You don't need to go to the UK for PLAB 1. All right, please, please, please. Don't let anyone tell you need to go to the UK to prepare for PLAB 1. I don't know where this started, you don't. So there are a lot of sources you need to prepare for PLAB 1. Right, this is where it changes again from the other exams. There is no textbook for PLAB. There is no, what is that book for USMLE, first aid or something like that? So there's no book like that for PLAB. There is no such book. Don't let anyone tell you there is a book. There is a book called the 1700 MCQs. That book is a little outdated. The questions are a lot tougher now. But if you are somebody who's maybe in third year or in fourth year, or in final year, and you're not entirely sure, you want to dabble with the questions, see what might be the pattern, then that's a good read to look into the PDF of the 1700 MCQs. 1700 MCQs PDF available everywhere. You can find it, not difficult to find. The next thing I have to tell you is make sure you have a VPN. So, because for example, the NICE guidelines, the NICE guidelines and some other websites that you're required to access, you may not be able to access from India or from outside the UK. So make sure that you have VPN so you can virtually be in the UK. If anybody wants a VPN recommendation for your browser, let me know. I have one. I just don't remember the name. Others I would have plugged it in here. Like I said earlier, the PLAB 1 is a very clinical exam, and it's nothing like anything you guys have faced before. Trust me, because I didn't face anything like that. It's all about clinics. For example, you get a really thick book of 180 questions, which you have to answer in 180 minutes. So these are multiple choice questions, 180 questions, 180 minutes. It is exhausting. It is the toughest exam I've given as far as sitting in one place and giving an exam goes, right? It requires great mental strength. It requires a lot of preparation before. You can't do an all-nighter before and come in because, pardon me, excuse me. All right. It requires a lot of mental strength and it requires a lot of preparation because you can't just go charging into this exam with a one-nighter or an all-nighter the night before, because it tests literally every single subject. So you have surgery, medicine, pediatrics, your general knobs, everything is there in one go. So for that reason, you have to, it should be from your core knowledge, right? On top of that, it's 3 hours in an air-conditioned room. It's very, if you get up to pee and you take 5 minutes, then that's suddenly 5 questions you don't get to answer. So bladder control is another thing. So brain control, bladder control, and a lot of preparation in between. Cool. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, okay. The preparation for the PLAB 1 exam is completely question-based. In that you have to, there'll be these question banks you can access, which has a lot of questions and their explanations and a little theory around those areas. So what I used was a question bank called PLABable, which was really good. And they had some theory notes attached to it called the PLABable Gems, which was also really good. I do highly recommend it. But then the more people you ask, the more options you get. So make sure you try and test and see what works for you, because I'm somebody who just cannot cram information, and therefore I need to have a concept to attach everything to. And therefore, somebody's mic is on. If you could turn it off, please. Excellent. So yeah, I'm somebody who needs to have a concept to attach to what I'm studying. And so therefore, PLABable will work for me. If you're like me, I would recommend PLABable to you. There is another company, the one I work for, that is iMedics, that offers a free PLAB question bank. Enakshi Gupta. Okay, cool. Anyways, cool. Yeah, so there is a free question bank by iMedics. So if you want to have a dabble with the PLAB questions, although they don't look exactly like the PLAB questions, the concepts they test are really quite good and really very standard. So if you want to give that a go, you can have a 1-year subscription. You can do it for free, and brilliant. So give that a whirl as well. Whether or not you're going to do the 1,700 is totally up to you. The Oxford Handbook of Clinical Medicine is the book you refer if you don't know something. But listen very carefully to the word refer. It's not a book you study from cover to cover, because, I mean, straight up residents don't know the Oxford Handbook of Clinical Medicine cover to cover. It's not expected from you. That's not the level at all. You're going in as a junior doctor. So make sure you understand this is just a reference book. If you don't understand, for example, if you've never heard of MI in your entire life, even though I doubt that, this is where you go to learn about MI. All right. You can use the NICE guidelines and the NICE CKS, which is a website you need a VPN to access. So NICE as in NICE. Type that into Google, you get the site. You can use the BNF for your pharmacology. But all of these are references, and do not study off these sites or sources. Yeah, cool. All right, so don't study the questions. Study the theory which is associated with the question. So don't mug up the question and then go to the exam and then send me a message on Instagram saying that you said the questions will come, but none of the questions came. This is not a hack. This is the way you study for the exam. Yeah. So make sure you know the concept of the question, what they're asking from you. So for example, when it is MI management, they want you to know what the management is. They're not going to give you the same 68-year-old female who comes to the ER. It could be a different female. It could be a male. It could be somebody who doesn't want to tell you their gender. It's not as simple as just learning the questions. All right. All the questions do repeat. So if you are using PLABable, sometimes you might see the exact same question in the paper, in which case, hallelujah, good for you. Okay, so time for preparation for the exam. I mean, isn't that a golden question? Okay, so if you have time, if you are working, the preparation is different. All right, so there are some people out there who take a year to prepare for PLAB 1. In my opinion, that's not required. You have a medical education, that's good enough. Your medical educations are going to be good enough. So what you need to do is, if you are an honest medical student, you don't need a year to prepare for the exam. I prepared for about a month and a half, which is not what I recommend. That's a bit daft. Don't do that. Take about 3 months to prepare if you are free. If you are not free, if you are working, take about 4 to 5 months to prepare. But you should know your studying style and how much time you need to put in. Because with my timetable, towards the end of it, I was doing like 16-hour days, and that was not good for my health or anybody really. So that's not ideal. Don't do that. Don't rush into it. That's why I tell you, make sure you do as I say and not as I did. All right, so cool. The iMedics question bank, 1,700 questions, MCQs. If you want to give a swing at PLAB and see what it's like, definitely try those out. And then the next thing is make sure you pick a solid question bank to do for your preparation. People ask me, do I have to do multiple question banks? You do not. You do not need to do multiple question banks. That's ridiculous. Don't do it. Pick one question bank, do it once, do it a second time, know the questions, know the theory, make good notes of these things, of the concepts. Things are different. For example, whether do you use streptokinase, do you use alteplase? Things are very, very different in the UK. They don't use streptokinase, for example. All right. So that's how it works. So know these things. Right, let's talk about the actual PLAB 1 exam. Like I said, 180 questions, 180 minutes. It happens around the world at the same time. So if it's 8 a.m. in the UK, it's like what, 4.5 hours later in Sri Lanka, India, this region, and then more towards the other side of the clock on the other side of the world. So basically it happens at the same time. So you have to be at the exam on time. Don't be late, obviously. Make sure you're well prepared. Don't do an all-nighter the night before. You need to access all your gray matter for this exam. So make sure that you are well rested and well equipped. So make sure your preparation is not rushed. Each MCQ is, there are 180 MCQs. Each MCQ is 5 stems, not 4, 5. All right. You will get questions which you have to evaluate an ECG, evaluate an X-ray, evaluate other scans, evaluate lab reports, maybe a CT scan. So make sure that you have practiced those as well, which you will practice when you join one of these question banks, and you will get access to these things and you will learn those things. Sometimes you may not be good at ECG like every single medical student before you, so make sure you make an effort to learn ECG if that's the case. All right, you're not abnormal, you're just a medical student. The next thing is bladder control. So make sure you don't have like a giant barrel of coffee before you walk into the exam. So know your limits, practice bladder control before the exam. I beg of you, practice bladder control, 3 hours. PLAB 2, excellent, 875 pounds. Very expensive exam, but still cheaper than the USMLE and a lot of other exams. This exam happens in Manchester in the United Kingdom. So for this exam, obviously you have to go for the exam to the UK. People ask about academies and whether you should go to academies. That's your personal preference. So make sure that you do the research before you do this thing, before you go to academy, or if you choose to go to an academy, that's up to you. The majority of the people do. So just take and use that information to draw your own inferences. As far as the crux of PLAB 2, it is practice, 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 practice. So make sure you practice with people from India. Make sure you practice with people elsewhere. Make sure you are talking to a lot of people from a lot of different places. So you catch accents, you catch mannerisms, and you find it easy to communicate with a lot of people. All right. So practice is very important. Okay, so the thought of going to Manchester does throw a lot of people off because you have to go to Manchester, you have to live there. If you're attending an academy, you have to live there for longer. And then there's the trauma of applying for visa, living there by yourself. So these are things that you have to get used to, sort of. And anyways, at the end of the day, you are going to move to the UK and you're going to be there by yourself anyways. So sort of pull your pants up and sort of dive in with that one. All right. Understand that you're not the only person doing it, and you meet a lot of people. If you choose to go to an academy, you'll meet a lot of people doing the similar thing. So make sure you talk to them and listen to their stories as well. Trust me, it really, really helps. It may, because I understand that when medical students or in the medical fraternity, and we always think of time and how productive is this to me. But understand that this is now the part of your life which you're supposed to be living, and so live that part of your life, get to know people, talk to people, yeah, and interact. Okay, the actual PLAB 2 exam is an OSCE type exam, and by OSCE I mean that it is stations, right? So you move into now for example, currently it is 16 stations with 8 minutes per station, and they are really strict with their 8 minutes. It's not, if you don't finish the case in 8 minutes, it's over. That's basically all the time you get. So you need to be well oiled and well practiced before you attend this exam. All right. So these are not normal cases like your MIA, your COPD, your examination of a lump. This is not the type of exam it is. I mean, although you do get MI, COPD, and examination of a lump, there are cases such as angry patient, breaking bad news, counseling a patient, confronting a colleague. For example, your colleague is, I don't know, consuming a lot of alcohol and coming to work, and you have to confront him and tell him, listen, what you're doing is wrong. This is what we feel. This is what I would like you to do. Is there anything I can do to help? And so it's a lot about talking and counseling and communicating. So these are actual exam stations you're judged on. So it's not just about your medical knowledge, it's judging you as a human being and you as a teacher. So for example, you might get a teaching station where you have to teach someone an ECG or teach someone an X-ray. And I know you're thinking, hell, I don't know ECG. How am I going to teach somebody ECG? But trust me, it's not that difficult. You don't have to teach a lot. It's the bare basics of things. However, understand that what they're looking for are teachers, and they're looking for mentors. They're looking for decent human beings on top of being medical personnel. All right. So this applies, I'm sure, to the physiotherapist people here as well. So make sure that, again, it's all about communicating and asking, does this hurt? Does that hurt? How are you today? Being very polite, being very approachable. And like I said before, practice, 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 practice. ECFMG and EPIC verification. This is the next step in the pathway. So that would be basically there is this verification and a license you can carry for your medical degree. All right. So before you start this journey, do go on the GMC website and check if your medical degree is acceptable in the UK, because some universities' medical degrees are not, in which case you can write to the GMC and ask them. If you can't find your university, write to the GMC and ask them, or you can phone them. They're very, very nice people. They're very, very receptive, and they're happy to answer your questions. So please, please talk to them. So this is something I left out. I don't know why, but please, please, please talk to the GMC if your MBBS certificate is not accepted there. So that would be probably step one. All right. So if you have seniors who have moved there from your university, it shouldn't be a problem. But either way, do check, do ask them. And when you make a GMC account, anyways, that's something that you'll have to enter theirs anyways. So don't worry about it. But yeah, this is just another caveat. Make sure that that's done. All right. So ECFMG EPIC verification, it's an American company that basically takes your degree certificate and calls your university, asks, did this person come to your university? How did he perform? All right, good, 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 good. And gives he or she a EPIC verification. So that basically tells the GMC, yes, this person's degree is indeed his degree and is legit. So it's something that you need to do. This will cost you $130. This is dollars. I didn't convert it to pounds. I'm sorry. So yeah, this is $130. It could be a bit more. It could be about 150. So yeah, make sure you write that down as well. Another thing, yeah. So like I mentioned, EPIC verification needs to be done after your PLAB 1. So you can do it even now. If you have a medical degree, you can start now as well. However, after your PLAB 1, what you realize is I have a lot of free time. I've been studying continuously. I am tired. So this is something nice for you to do in that time. You don't have to do anything too difficult. It's about scanning some documents and sending them over. You'll have to attend a quick face-to-face with a notary public who'll ask you to solemnly swear that you are this person on a webcam, and it's pretty simple, and then you get your verification done. So this is something that fits in nicely after PLAB 1, because you do need it for your GMC registration. So if you finish your PLAB 2 and you suddenly get your results and you've passed, it's all good, you're very happy, and then you realize, oh man, I forgot my EPIC verification, that would be far from ideal. So make sure that you have your EPIC verification done at a PLAB 1 level. So at that point, you'll know it's done. You can stop thinking about it. All right. Right. This is now, pay attention, guys. This is how the medical pathway works in the UK, roughly. All right. So once you get your GMC registration, let me see if I can put a pointer on this. Yeah. All right. Can you guys see the pointer? Excellent. Right. So this is you get your GMC registration. You've done your IELTS, you've done IELTS OET, you've done your PLAB 1, you've done your PLAB 2, become a big hotshot doctor, you get your GMC registration, and now you've moved to the UK. So you can enter at an FY1, FY2 level, an FY2 standalone level, and an FY2 level job. All right. So these all sound the same. I understand it sounds the same, and I don't know why it sounds the same. However, these are three very different jobs. FY1, FY2 is what you guys call, or we call, internship. All right. So if you have an internship, this is not for you. And by have an internship, I mean have an acceptable internship by the GMC. Yeah, they have to approve your internship. So that's something you can message the GMC about as well. Then you have FY2 standalone, all right, which is basically a training job. So now notice how this says training, and this says non-training. So FY2 standalone is another training job where you can apply after you finish your internship. You just go into a training job to learn how the GMC works. So this is the job I said that you need a slightly higher score on your IELTS for. But FY2 level, or SHO, which is senior house officer, or trust grade doctor, which is the same thing, is the job that most people apply for. You can sign a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract, a 3-year contract. I mean, it really depends on what they offer you. So yeah, so you can sign whatever contract they offer you. However, this is a non-training job, and that does not mean that you are not taught anyone, or you are just dropped into the deep end and they tell you swim. That's not what that means at all. What this means is nobody's checking your competencies. Nobody's coming in making you fill forms saying that I have done such and such many cannulas, or I have done this many NG tubes, or this is the amount of patients I have seen. Nobody's coming behind you and asking you to fill out any forms about this. So you're basically, okay, so in India, you have MOs, yeah, who are not residents, who are not consultants. They just work in a department, and maybe today they're in emergency and tomorrow they're in neurosurgery. So it's sort of like that. Yeah. So this is the job you get. So you'll be assigned a certain amount of a certain number of departments for a year, and you circulate through those departments through the year, maybe 6 months here, 6 months there, and you get paid. So a lot of people pick this because the salary is a little higher than this, and you need a lesser IELTS score to do it. Okay. But saying this, if you want to fill out competencies, if you want someone to fill out saying that you've done this many cannulations and all that, which is required for you to move into training later on, you can do it. It's just that nobody's going to pester you to do it. So you can still pick out the form, do it, find a mentor, which is not difficult to do in the UK, as I'm told, because people are all about mentoring and raising the next generation of doctors. So it's not difficult. If one fellow says no, you can simply go to the next person and ask, would you like to be my mentor, please? And they'll probably say yes. All right. So this is the job that most people take. So just keep that in mind. Don't be confused by the terms FY1, FY2, FY2 standalone, or FY2 level SHO trust grade doctor. All right. Is that clear to everybody? Excellent. Right. Let's move on then. Okay. Right. Hang on, just give me a second, please. All right. So now you've entered as a junior doctor. So all those jobs I showed you earlier were junior doctor posts. All right. All those jobs I showed you earlier were junior doctor posts. So after you're done being a junior doctor, I mean, you can quite happily continue as a junior doctor for as long as you want. I mean, you just have to keep signing contracts every year, and that's, some people find it okay, some people find it cumbersome. It's totally up to you. But what the UK does encourage is for people to specialize. So you can either continue as a trust grade doctor, yeah, so you can move in from being a junior doctor, you can move straight into being a trust grade doctor, or you can move into applying for training. All right, so I'm assuming that the majority of you, the thumping majority of the doctors here, will want to become some sort of specialist. All right, so this is the specialization pathway, right? Before I start explaining this, what I'd like to say is there are a couple of caveats before we start this. All right, GP training. If you want to be a general practitioner in the UK, which is basically what the whole UK healthcare system is based off of, right? GP is not the same thing as you and I have GP in our countries. You and I have GPs for basically people who don't do anything else, right? So your average MO, when they become a little old and gray, they call themselves GP. This is not what I mean by GP. GP in the UK is a consultant. So you have to actually specialize to become a GP. All right. So when you become a GP, basically every person has to go see a GP first, and then they will refer them on to specialists if they need. So others, they treat these things. For example, how your grandparents go and see a cardiologist to treat their blood pressure. That does not happen in the UK. A GP will treat their blood pressure because a cardiologist is not required to prescribe an ACE inhibitor. Okay, so make sure that you know that before deciding what specialty you want to get into, because GP is actually quite a lucrative way to go in the UK. But if you're not going into GP or you're not going into psych, right? So if you want to go into psych, let's talk about it in the questions if anybody does. But if you're not looking into GP or psych, this is the training pathway. There is core training, there is specialty training, and then you become a consultant. All right. So core training. Okay.
Guys, I would like to request everybody to just, keep your audios on mute.
Except me. I'll be keeping my audio on. The rest of you, please.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's get back into it. So the core training aspect of this. Guys, am I moving too fast for you? Would you like me to slow down, speed up? Or good?
No,
Thumbs up to the camera if everything is good.
Cool. I think
Excellent.
the pace is correct. In case any of you guys have doubt, like between the session, you guys can keep on adding in the chat box. Towards the end of the session, I can ask sir. He'll clear out everything.
Yeah, that would go. That will work really well. Yeah. So let's do that. Yeah. All right. So just keep adding into the question box, and I can scroll back, and we can take time. All right. Cool. Right. So you have your core training, you have your specialty training, and you have your becoming a consultant. So everybody says, okay, why would I move to the UK, Shaam? If I stay in India, I can be a consultant in 3 years. Very, very good. I mean, power to you if that's what you choose to do. However, now if you notice here, core training 1, core training 2, ST4, ST3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you want to become a surgeon, for example, or a physician, it takes you 8 years to become a physician. Now, the reason it happens that way is because they make sure that their trainees are really very good and really very experienced when they become a consultant. So there's no such thing as a junior consultant. However, I have to ask you this question, and you have to ask yourself this question as well. Why do I want to become a consultant? I mean, is it social standing? Is it the money I earn? Is it comfort with my work hours? Because if it's about the money you earn and comfort with your work hours and being involved in the patient management, once you're a doctor in the UK, whether you're the consultant or the house officer or the intern on the floor, you both have equal input into the management. Everybody discusses, and it's a very open concept. Now, how many of you have interacted with a UK medical student or somebody who has come into your hospital for an elective of sorts? So I had a lot of experience that way. So what they say is this whole consultant mentality, where the consultant says something and it just goes, does not happen in the UK. Sometimes the consultant will say something, he might be wrong, and you'll be like, excuse me, doctor, let's say Philip, I feel like you may be incorrect with this because I read in the guidelines that it's like this. And they'll be like, oh, really, doctor? I mean, I don't know, Dr. Shaam, cool. Then let's look it up, and then you go and look it up, and you both learn, and it's very friendly, and then the sort of the title music plays and the movie ends. So basically, it's a very, very open and nourishing experience. So if these are your concerns, now social standing, becoming a consultant, calling yourself a consultant, these things are quite important. I understand. If that is your priority, if you want to become the youngest consultant ever, maybe the UK is not for you. But if it is about patient care, patient management, and stuff like that, and earning a decent salary, if these are your requirements to become a consultant, do consider the UK, because I mean, you're earning a decent salary from the time you're an intern. So, and you are involved in patient care and patient management from a very junior level. So it takes longer to become a specialist, right? So co-train. Can you guys see my pointer? Cool. Core training is basically it's basically, for example, if you take surgical subjects, if you take surgery, orthopedics, neuro, maybe not neuro, but like a couple of different surgical subjects, vascular, GI, cardiothoracic, stuff like that. The first 2 years of all their training falls under surgical core training. So where your basic surgical concepts are taught to you. This is the time where you do your membership exams, like your in the case of surgery, it would be MRCS, and if you want to become a physician, it would be MRCP. So this is where you are taught these basic concepts and how to be a surgeon. And then later on, you move into specialty training. And specialty training is where you're taught about cardiothoracic or GI or vascular, and then you become a consultant. All right, is that clear to you, everybody? Right. So at core training level, now there is no PG entrance exam. All right. So now, for example, who are the people I see on my screen? So let's say Maitri Shah. Okay, suppose you want to be, let's say, a cardiothoracic surgeon, and you want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon in India. You do the PG entrance, and you don't get cardiothoracic surgery. You get, let's say, orthopedic surgery. So that's not a very constructive way of of building doctors, right? So that's what they've understood. So what they have thought is, all right, you know what? We'll let the candidate pick the specialty, and when the candidate picks the specialty, they make a portfolio. All right, it's called a portfolio. So you put your competencies in it, you put the researches you've done, you put the surgeries you might have worked with, the courses you have done, and you basically show your dedication to that specialty. And then they ask you to come for an interview, you interview for the post, and then they select you for core training. Same goes to specialty training. And then ultimately you finish your exams there and you become a consultant. All right, so it's less exam based. It's more, how would you put it? It's more your dedication based, right? So how much you care about a given subject. All right, cool. Right, so is that clear to everybody? So it might take longer, but throughout the journey, you are still practicing at a reasonably high level. Okay, so what can I do now, right now, if I'm interested in PLAB? So one, you can join Facebook, Telegram, WhatsApp, and find these groups, join these groups. So what you can look for on Facebook is IMG communities, which is International Medical Graduates. Those communities for PLAB, PLAB 1, PLAB 2, doctors in the UK, stuff like that. Follow PLAB journey related content. This is not me plugging my Instagram handle. This is me telling you there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people on this journey who are far more popular than I. For example, Nasir Khan is a gentleman from Pakistan who's been in the UK for a while. His content is quite good, and you can actually approach him and ask him questions if you have. So it's quite good that way. So you can talk to these people, and you can ask your questions. So follow these people, learn to talk to them, learn to approach them, and build communication. And then later, when you come to this level, make sure you interact with people who are just starting their journeys, because it can be scary and it can help. All right. So then read about good medical practice. There's a thing called Good Medical Practice UK. Make sure you find it, read it. I mean, it'll tell you about what it is to be a doctor in the UK, what is expected of you, etc., etc. Try to practice those same values in your day-to-day work. So if you're an intern and I mean you're learning about counseling patients, make sure to give a little time to counsel your patients. Maybe explain to them, because I'm sure our patients in this part of the world are criminally under-counseled, and it's important that you talk to your patients and explain to them, and that way they will at least um, say to you that you're a good doctor, and that'll make you feel good. So it's something nice. All right. Uh, Pass your finals. Make sure that you don't bog your head in PLAB and forget about your MBBS. Finish your MBBS. That's important. Make a lot of contacts, make a lot of friendships, talk to people who are in and around PLAB, who have done PLAB, who are doing PLAB, who are about to do PLAB. Talk to them, reach out to them, reach out to your seniors and help your juniors. All right. So yeah, that is exactly what I am doing. In that, when I started the journey, I was quite alone, and here I am trying to help the next generation of plabbers through this exam and give them some level of support, because it is important. It is important for you to understand that people who are lesser doctors than you may have done this journey, and there are people out there who are willing to help you. So when you come to that position, make sure you make yourself available and lose the hierarchical mindset. That is, I am a consultant or I am a doctor, she's a nurse, and therefore screw her. None of that. Yeah, you have to be open to talk to everybody. It takes all kinds in the NHS to make it work, and so much so it's actually on a first name basis. Like you may actually call your boss Peter or Lincoln. I don't know why I said Lincoln, but you may actually call him by his first name, because that's how it works there. You don't refer to anybody as sir or ma'am. None of that exists. It's just about calling people by their name or doctor so and so. I mean, that's respectful enough. Cool. Then these are frequently asked questions, and I'm sure some of you are going to ask these questions today anyways, so let me answer them. Research, courses, work experience. How important is that to getting a job in the UK? All right. It's definitely important. All right. I'm not going to say it's not going to do anything for you. However, there are so many people who get jobs without all of this, because I understand that coming about research, going about getting into courses and getting a lot of work experience is near impossible in this part of the world. And they know that. So that is why when you go in as a trainee or when you go in as a trust grade doctor, make sure you put yourself out there and you get involved with these things. Yeah. Make sure you go and do your ALS, and you go and do maybe basic life support. Maybe you decide to teach. Maybe you do a webinar. These are things that you can add to your arsenal of talents. I mean, being able to teach may be not something tangible where you have a certificate for, but it can definitely be something that can be proven. You can say, I'm quite passionate to teach, or I'm do a lot of social service. Yeah, so I'm sure that there are places where you can volunteer and do things, especially in the middle of a pandemic, or maybe not during a pandemic, maybe when it's over. Go and work with some people, talk to a food I don't know, food what is it called, forgot what it's called. So basically where they distribute food to the homeless, or an orphanage or an elders home. Do these things, and when you decide to go to the UK, just before you go, ask them to give you a letter of recommendation, speaking about your character. So these are things that can really bolster an application. So they understand that not all of these things are accessible to everybody, so you don't have to do these things. If you have access, good, that's fine. Gaps in my career, so that's a big talking point. What if I took a gap year? What if I got pregnant? What if I decided to get married? Will that affect my join to the UK? First of all, it's not going to affect you doing PLAB or not doing PLAB. That's not going to be a problem. But when you interview for a job, you have to be confident enough to explain why it is you took a time off. Yeah. So if you just decided to, I don't know, uh, just sit at home for no good reason at all and maybe binge Game of Thrones, I don't think that's the most ideal thing to give as an explanation. However, if you, for example, you got married, it's a completely valid reason. You say, I'm sorry, so I took some time off medicine, I was getting married and starting my family. Perfectly fine. All right. So make sure you can justify what you've been doing with your time. It's something that can come up. And for example, in the middle of the pandemic, it's not a big problem. You can just say pandemic and then they'll understand, because luckily for us, the UK has gotten hit quite seriously and they take it very seriously. So yeah, make sure that you know what you're doing with your time. So don't just waste your time. Competency with English. I already spoke to this. You don't have to speak like Prince Charles, for example. Your English just needs to be English. It can have an accent. You can have no accent at all. Obviously, probably don't try to emulate an accent. That's not ideal. That's a bit rude. But Yeah, it's perfectly all right. As far as you can speak some English and you pass your IELTS and your OET, your English can only get better. But make sure you try to talk to everybody in English so you can better your English and increase your vocabulary. Watch a lot of English shows without subtitles, and try to better yourself that way. All right. Um, right. Right. My journey. So if you want to learn a lot about my journey, um, it's it's well documented on Instagram. So go and find me there at paging Dr. Brown. You'll find me there, and that is pretty much how I started. To now, you'll find me getting annoyed. You'll find me getting absolutely thumped down. You'll find the victories and all that. So it's a very up and down course, but that such is life and such is the way it is. All right. Ideally, I would have preferred to have my PLAB 2 towards the beginning of this year, but sadly I can only give it in October. So that's all right. But along the way, I've learned a lot of things. I met my employers, met my bosses, and I've met so many great people along the way. So it's really really worth it, and you meet so many interesting people. All right, from different places in the world, and you learn their stories, and it's so nice to actually talk to these people. So make sure understand that this is not just an exam; this is the rest of your life. So live it as you do it. I understand that this is about you guys, all right. So me talking about my journey is not ideal, but let's see if you can gain something from what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Um, if you gain some value from my journey, then I guess it helps. So if you are, like I said earlier, if you're very interested, I'm on Instagram. You can find me there. But the mistakes I did, the setbacks that I've had, and these things are stuff. Some of those things are stuff that you guys can avoid. So, for example, when to do your IELTS, how much in advance to do it. These are things that you can actually learn from. And so, do make sure that you take all that advice. This I notice a lot of people are leaving this, but okay, cool. Um, I'm sorry, am I being boring? All right.
Not at all, not at all.
I guess some people really just don't want to go to the UK. Oh, that's perfectly fine. It's okay. um, yeah, so it's important to have a map of what you want to do. So a little timeline as to where you want to be, when you want to be there. So make sure that you have that mapped out to at least roughly, so that you know when you want to take your PLAB 1, when you're comfortable with your PLAB 2, when you want to start practicing. Take breaks in between. Make sure that that's there as well. So if you notice, I also post with breaks because sometimes I just I'm not motivated, and that's all right. And this is, if there's one thing you take away from a whole PLAB journey and all that, is don't compare your journey with somebody else's, because the internet is a foul place, and they may be very happy on it, but everybody has their own struggles. So understand that people have their struggles. It's not just about the victories. So make sure that you don't compare your journey with anybody else. I mean, you can be very bitter. Sometimes somebody who did PLAB 1 after you might get a PLAB 2 date before you. So it's not, you can't be completely happy, but it's just what happens. All right. So don't compete with others. As far as this, it's not a it's a competitive exam in the sense that there is no pass mark when you sit the exam. The pass mark is set after the exam based on how well people performed. They make that bell curve and then they center it, and then they decide who passes. But it doesn't shift so much that one time the pass mark is 10% and the next time it's 90%. No, it's within the range of 60 to 65%. All right, so the state papers are pretty standard. So it's not don't compete with other people. Don't withhold information, because that's not good karma. All right. Then, like I said at the beginning, do your own research. All right. Don't take all your advice from webinars and other people's experiences. Do your own research. Reach out to people who you trust and talk to them as well. Don't forget this part of it, this webinar. All right. So then, last but certainly not least, do you all have any questions?
Yes, so we have some questions there in the chat box. I'll just read it aloud to you so that you can just clear them. Yeah.
Okay. Can you also tell me who is asking the question? Because I'd like to.
Yeah. I'll be telling the name as well.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know what is this name. It's Impulse's iPhone. So
Cool.
she or he is asking the question that what GP is required in IELTS to qualify for PLAB?
What GP?
Yeah.
I'm assuming he means score. Okay, so dear Mr. iPhone or Madam iPhone,
Yeah.
the competency you require to qualify for IELTS for PLAB is a 7 for each of the four criteria, which is reading, writing, listening, and speaking, and a 7.5 overall score. So when they add all the scores together and they divide it by 4, it should be 7.5 or more. All right. Um, but if you're applying for an FY1 job, so it's better to have a 7.5 for both of those categories in advance. So that's the difference there. All right. So although you can do PLAB, you might not be able to get your FY1 because the score is a little higher for FY1 by 0.5.
Okay. I think we have cleared your doubt. In case we haven't, you can just, unmute yourself and ask yourself.
Yes, please feel free to interact with me. Please feel free to ask.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to answer.
Yeah, we'll just clear some of the questions that are there in the chat box. And after that,
Okay.
in case anybody still wishes to ask, you guys can unmute yourself and ask. That's absolutely
Yes.
fine.
That's absolutely
So the
preferred
next
as well.
question. Yeah. So again, he or she has only asked the same question. That's Impulse's iPhone. What's the marking scheme for PLAB 1?
Okay, so the marking scheme obviously changes with every exam. Impulse's iPhone has entered the waiting room. Okay, so Impulse's iPhone is not even on the chat.
Oh God. So could you just let her in?
So we're just going to assume that it's a girl, are we?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. All right. So hopefully, yeah. Okay. So the marking scheme for PLAB 1
One.
obviously changes as far as every exam is concerned. Like I said, there's not a uniform pass mark. It changes every year or for every sitting. So what happens is they take the average score of every candidate and then they create the pass mark. They add it onto a bell curve, and that's how they create the pass mark. All right. So yeah. So you can't really say you need this many MCQs to pass, but roughly you can say you need between 60 to 65%. So if you can target a 65%, you're generally quite safe all the time. But what the thing is, you can't really come out of the paper, discuss your answers, and know if you're going to pass in advance, because by the time you do 180 questions, your brain is basically fried at that point, and you can't even remember if you turned the first page, let alone whether you answered the question. Trust me about this. It's an intense exam, but it's a very doable exam. I'm not the most book smart guy out there. It's a very doable exam, and it's very fun to learn for. Again, I'm not somebody who enjoyed studying. I enjoy practicing. I don't really enjoy studying, but even I had so much fun studying for PLAB 1. It's just an amazing exam to give.
Okay. So sir, she's only asking that is there any negative marking for this?
No, there isn't, because that god awful thing is an Asian thing for some reason. There's no negative marking in PLAB.
Okay. So the next question is a person called Meeti is asking the question.
All right.
Hey sir, can you tell us about the difference after junior doctor level if we want to do psychiatry?
Okay, so Miti wants to do psychiatry. Is this the same Miti who has a camera on?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, Miti. Okay, this is nice. I can actually talk to somebody and answer your question. All right. Yes, it's a bit different. There's an exam called the MRSA. All right. So you do your MRSA and you can immediately enter into psychiatry training. So it's the same exam you need to take to enter GP training. So you can just do that exam. It's for GP and psychiatry training. And some amount of people who are doing OBGYN also do that. So I think there's 20% quota for people who pass MRSA. So psychiatry, yeah, it's a really good specialty. And if you're keen to do psychiatry, good on you, because the UK is huge on psychiatry. That by that I mean that they take mental health really at very high regard, and in fact it should be taken that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, power to you. I wish you all the best.
Okay.
All right.
So the next question is, I would request everyone, if they can just switch on their videos while sir is answering their question. It would be great for him as well. So
Yeah, that would be lovely. Yes.
yeah, Sharmeen More is asking this question. So she has three questions to ask. The first question is there a way to conduct audits in India, since it's not routinely done and not many people know what an audit is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a very valid question. Audits is something that you can do, but like you said, you do need some help with doing an audit, because if you look at the audit, that if you go onto the GMC website and search for audits, they have a PDF which you can download, which explains to you what are the requirements of an audit. So what I would say is you can't achieve that level of you can't really do it to that level, simply because you don't have like audit managers and you don't have people you can approach. But what you can do is something similar to an audit. Whereas you do a hospital developmental project, you can call it an audit as well, and you can definitely put this on your CV, and it definitely shows you are keen to do an audit. So what I would do is, if I were you, I would read through the PDF. I think it's like 9 or 10 pages, and whatever comes to my mind, I would talk to my hospital director and see if it's something that's feasible, and get together with another group of people who are planning to do PLAB, and try to do it that way. Because although it might not count as an actual audit, it will definitely help you in your CV. So if you're brave enough to do an audit, go forth, be successful. Wish you all the best.
Okay. So she has only asked the second question, which is, can you describe briefly about SJT for FY2 standalone and UKMLA, which is going to be applicable for students applying from 2024 instead of PLAB?
Okay, well, what was the first question? SJT?
Yeah.
What is SJT? I have no idea. Like, I haven't heard of SJT. So I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. So maybe I'll, if you could drop me or maybe drop a message on the group about that, or if you care,
Yeah.
elaborate in the chat.
So I'll be, sir,
Hello.
I'll be share. Yeah, you can.
Hi.
Yeah. So the SJT is basically the situational judgment test, which is going to be applicable. Like it's basically for the UK students.
Oh,
So
okay. Right. Yeah, okay. I follow now. Yeah. Situation judgment.
yeah.
Okay. So that's basically for UK medical students before they start their internship, right?
Yeah, but now they released a rule that is going to be applicable for everyone, including the overseas students for FY2 standalone as well.
For FY2 standalone as well. Okay. So situational judgment test is, if I'm not mistaken, a test of basically how you judge a situation. So it's a lot of ethics related problems. Yeah. So there is a lot of material that helps with that. In fact, iMedics also does some courses about it, and they do a few free sessions as well. So if I were you, I'd reach out to them, because I personally am not planning to enter at FY2 standalone. So I haven't really looked into it. But it's not something that the UK medical students consider a big hindrance. Yes, it's not that difficult. It's just that we require, after PLAB 2, I'm pretty sure that you will get a good idea on situational awareness and the judgment on or situational awareness. You'll get quite a good orientation with regard to that. I'm sorry, I don't really know more than that, but I don't want to give you any false information as well. So I would reach
Yeah.
out to iMedics, or maybe
Oh,
somebody else who is doing FY1, FY2 as well. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
But what was your second question?
That now, like, because I'm in second year right now, like I'll be completing my second year in another month. So
Oh wow.
basically, by the time I'll be giving, like I'll be finishing my internship in 2023. So I'll be giving my PLAB 2 in 2024. So,
Okay.
but now they're removing the PLAB thing, and from
Okay.
2024 they have this thing called UKMLA.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So this is a big talking point, right? So UKMLE seems to be just a name change. All right. Uh, there's going to be some areas within it where they question a little bit more here, a little bit less there. But I wouldn't be too alarmed, and PLAB resources will work with UKMLE as well. At least that's what I'm told, because they haven't released any information other than that about UKMLE. But from my mentors in the UK and who are my bosses there as well, so what they say is that there is not a big difference between UKMLE and PLAB as of now, to our knowledge. All right, but Sharmeen, is that how it's pronounced? Is that how your name is pronounced?
Sharmeen, yeah.
Sharmeen. Okay, Sharmeen. So what I would say is don't worry about it just yet. Um, yeah, you have a long time to wait, and by the time you do UK, by the time you decide to move into PLAB, there would have been people who have done UKMLE, so you'll be able to get a good orientation from them as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for your question. All the best.
Okay, so she has asked another question as well.
Okay.
How important is it to do an elective in UK in third and penultimate year of the medical school?
When considering moving to the UK with PLAB, what you must understand is the majority of the people moving in at that level are junior doctors. So as much as an elect, could you just give me 1 second? Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so as far as an elective is concerned, yes, it is definitely worth it, whether you do it as a junior doctor or whether you do it as a medical student. But I wouldn't say it's necessary. All these things definitely add to your CV because it basically proves that you are oriented to the system, you've been in the system, you understand how it works to some extent, so it always helps. But I wouldn't say it's necessary. All right. In fact, a lot of people who go for PLAB 2, after they finish PLAB 2, they do an elective in some hospitals, which can be quite expensive. So although not everyone does it, if you are happy to do it, if you have budgeted for it, I would definitely say do it.
Okay,
Thank
thank you, sir. So
All right.
the next question is Ariharan Sivaraj has asked. I think he has a similar kind of question. Just you can unmute yourself and tell if it's already clear or no. Can you tell about electives and ways to increase the CV?
Okay, so yeah, so as far as CVs are concerned, you can do a lot of courses. All right. So you can do trauma care, you can do life support courses as well. Not all of them are transferable to the UK, but at least it's something nice on your CV. You can do electives. You can do, I mean, your internship. You can have letters of recommendation from consultants and your seniors who think that you did a good job. You can do audits. Like I explained, it's not ideal, but you can definitely attempt an audit. If you can do some volunteer work, that helps as well, because with the whole good humans as well as good doctors. So yeah, those are the ways you can improve your CV. I would tell you to mainly focus on the PLAB exam, and if you can interview well, generally landing a job isn't too difficult. It's a known fact that UK has a lot of jobs. So provided you interview well and you're able to communicate and you're able to laugh and talk and you're quite good with your communication wise, I wouldn't struggle. I wouldn't say you would struggle too much with the interview aspects and landing a first job, because once you land a first job, you will be able to participate in actual research and actual audits in the NHS structure, because it's very difficult, from what I've heard, to actually dodge research. You'll have to actually actively dodge being part of research, because everybody's trying to do research and further medicine. So if you take a year there and you participate that way, I'm sure you'll get all the competencies you need to apply for your training job.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All
So
right.
we have next question asked by Tanya Jacob.
Okay.
If we are doing some research in medical school, in which journal we should publish? Will it help to strengthen the CV?
Wow. So if you can get something published as a medical student, that will definitely help. It will definitely help. However, the thing is, you'll have to reach out to your seniors in your medical school and find out ideally go to your community medicine department and talk to them, because these are the people who do the research. Obviously, have a nice tasty topic. uh, don't do something very generic. Maybe do a case study on a patient who is not the normal patient, and that's the best way to get things published. Because if you do yet another hypertension study, it's not really going to get published. So pick something interesting and try to couple yourself to a consultant, because that way, if they are interested as well, it can really push this along. Because as a medical student from this part of the world, I don't see a lot of us who do research or even have the ability to. If you have time to do research as well as study, good on you. And but do reach out to your community medicine department. I think that's the best way forward.
Okay, thank you so much. So again, we have one more question asked by Impulse's iPhone. After PLAB 2, when we are in the UK and studying there simultaneously and want to settle there, what are the requirements to acquire a residency?
When you are studying in the UK,
Yeah.
so you're not
So
studying in
when,
India.
so like after PLAB 2,
Okay.
when we are in the UK and studying
Okay.
there simultaneously
Okay. While
and
working.
yeah, as a
Okay.
junior doctor
Right.
and want to settle there,
Right.
what are the requirements to acquire a residency?
So by residency, do you mean a postgraduate slot or do you mean a house?
I think she can answer for herself. Impulse's iPhone, please.
Impulse's iPhone. Time to talk.
A house. Okay, a house.
A house. All right. Okay. So how do you buy a house? Okay. So that's a really good question actually, because I asked this question as well in one of the PLAB webinars when I attended to begin with. So when you move to the UK to begin with, you can actually ask the trust that's recruiting you to give you hospital accommodation. And once they give you hospital accommodation, you can move to the city. Suppose you're moving, let's say, to Bournemouth, and you move to Bournemouth, and you move into Bournemouth, and you'll start working there. You can immediately move into hospital accommodation. So then, in the months to follow, you can go out, you can wander, you can look for houses for rent. You can call a couple of people and decide if you want to move out of hospital accommodation, and then you can find a good place, a decent rent, something that you're comfortable paying every month, and move out from there. And then eventually you collect money and you buy yourself a property. So that's like very long term. But property is quite expensive in the UK. So you'll be renting for a little while.
Okay. So we have one more question. Some ideas about getting the citizenship, please.
All right, okay. Somebody really does not like their Indian passport. Okay, cool. I understand. This is how citizenship works. Right? That was a joke. I mean, no offense. Of course, our passports from this region of the world are quite weak. We need visas to travel literally everywhere, so it can get annoying. But all right, here we go. After you move to the UK and you're working for the NHS, this mainly applies to the doctors. If you're in physiotherapy or if you're some other specialty, there is also a pathway for you, but this is mainly the one for doctors. After 5 years of working for the NHS, you will get your permanent residency, provided you're a model employee and you don't, don't get caught for possession of cocaine or something like that. So basically, provided you don't mess up really big, you'll be all right. Then you get your permanent residency. After a year of having your permanent residency, you're eligible to take your citizenship test, and then you can have your UK passport. Cool.
Okay, well, that's huge. Yeah. So, sir, the next question is Tanya Jacob has asked, sir, if we are doing research, in which journal we should publish it? Will the journal be considered if, like it's an Indian journal?
Yeah, it will be considered. I mean, if you can publish your research in an international journal, obviously it's better. But generally, medical students' publications don't go that far. So if you are capable of going to an international journal, obviously it's great. But if you have a publication in an Indian journal, that's fine. Just don't make sure it's a reputable journal. Don't pick a very obscure journal, like the one that said that vaccines cause autism. Not one of those journals. So pick a decent journal which has generally good standing, and ask your bosses as well and your consultants what is a good journal, like what journals are considered of high standing in India, because India is a massive country and held in very high regard around the world. So don't just scoff at the journals in India. There are some really good journals as well. So make sure you pick one. Sadly, I'm not very oriented because, if you didn't catch it before, I'm not somebody who really reads a lot of journals. Yeah, as far as these things journals go, just make sure you contacted your seniors, talk to them, and ask them. Don't use some obscure journal essentially,
Okay.
and you'll be fine.
Okay, so thank you so much, sir. So we are done with all the questions.
We're done with the questions as well.
Also, I'll be sending. Yeah, we are done. Also, I'll be sending. Your